Your teenager comes home from school, drops their backpack by the stairs, and walks straight to their room. The door closes. You can tell something happened. Maybe it was a bad grade. Maybe a friend embarrassed them. Maybe they were left out of something they were pretending not to care about. You stand outside the door, trying to decide what to say, and for a moment, you remember what would have happened when you were their age. Maybe nobody would have followed you down the hallway. Nobody would have asked how you felt. You might have heard, "You'll get over it. Stop being so sensitive," or simply, "Handle it yourself." So you knock gently. You say, "You don't have to talk right now, but I'm here when you're ready." From the outside, this looks like a simple change in parenting, a more emotionally aware generation raising children with more conversation, more affection, and more support. But beneath that moment, there may be a much more complicated question. When you raise your children differently from the way you were raised, are you acting from freedom? Or are you still reacting to the past? Many Generation X parents became adults with a strong sense of independence. Some came home from school to an empty house. Some learned to make their own food, solve their own problems, manage younger siblings, and avoid bothering adults unless something was seriously wrong. Of course, not every Gen X childhood looked the same. Family, culture, money, neighborhood, and personality all mattered. But many grew up in environments where self-sufficiency was praised and emotional vulnerability was not always welcomed. You learned how to keep moving. You learned not to expect too much help. You learned that being strong often meant needing less, and those lessons may have made you capable, resourceful, and calm under pressure. They may be part of what helped you build a career, survive uncertainty, and handle responsibilities without constant reassurance. But what creates competence can also leave certain needs unnamed. A child who learns to solve everything alone may become an adult who is excellent in a crisis but uncomfortable asking for support. A child who rarely hears an apology may become an adult who believes authority must always look certain. A child whose emotions are dismissed may stop expressing them, not because the feelings disappeared, but because showing them no longer felt useful. Then that child becomes a parent, and suddenly the past is no longer just a memory, it becomes a reference point. You hear yourself using your father's tone. You notice your mother's words coming out of your mouth. You see fear in your child's face during an argument, and something inside you recognizes that expression. That recognition can create a powerful decision. This stops with me. You begin asking questions instead of making assumptions. You explain rules instead of demanding obedience without context. You apologize after losing your temper. You take your child's interests seriously, even when you do not understand them. This is not necessarily weakness or permissiveness. It may be a form of conscious pattern interruption. You are examining what you inherited instead of passing it forward automatically. Imagine a parent who yells during a stressful morning. Later, instead of pretending nothing happened, they sit beside their child and say, "I was frustrated, but the way I spoke to you was not okay." For someone raised to believe that parents never admit mistakes, this small apology can represent an enormous psychological shift. It teaches the child that love does not require pretending. It teaches that authority and accountability can exist together. But doing the opposite of your parents does not always mean you are free from their influence. Sometimes the past still controls the decision, just from the other direction. A father who felt emotionally abandoned may panic whenever his daughter pulls away. A mother who was never listened to may feel compelled to respond immediately to every sign of disappointment. A parent who faced bullying alone may rush into every school conflict before the child has had a chance to understand the situation or try a solution. The intention is loving, but the intensity may be coming from somewhere older. This is where protection can quietly become hypervigilance. You check every message, monitor every friendship, track every assignment, and try to prevent every painful outcome. You tell yourself you are simply being present, but sometimes constant supervision is not only about managing the child's world, it is also a way of managing your own anxiety. When your child is safe, you feel safe. When your child is happy, the past feels repaired. When your child is disappointed, rejected, or angry with you, old emotions return, often before you realize what is happening. The difficulty is that children need emotional safety, but they also need space to struggle. They need someone who will listen after a painful experience. But they also need opportunities to discover that discomfort is survivable. They need guidance, but they also need to make decisions that you would not make for them. They need protection from real danger, not protection from every difficult feeling. For a parent who once faced too much alone, that distinction can be painful. You may know intellectually that your child needs independence. Emotionally, however, their distance may feel like rejection. Their frustration may feel like evidence that you failed. Their silence may return you to your own closed bedroom where no one knocked. And without realizing it, you may be responding not only to the child standing in front of you, but also to the child you used to be. This does not mean your care is false. It means love and old fear can exist in the same reaction. That is why two parents may behave in exactly the same way for completely different reasons. One parent asks about feelings because they feel secure enough to welcome any answer. Another asks repeatedly because uncertainty feels unbearable. One parent stays involved because connection is one of their values. Another stays involved because stepping back creates guilt. One parent offers choices to encourage confidence. Another avoids setting limits because saying no feels too much like the rejection they once experienced. The behavior looks similar from the outside. The psychological need underneath it is different, and that need matters because parenting slowly becomes part of identity. You may begin to see yourself as the parent who is always available, always understanding, always different from your own parents. That identity can be meaningful. It can guide you toward patience and compassion, but it can also become a trap. If being a good parent means your child must never feel alone, then every moment of distance feels like failure. If being a good parent means your child must always feel understood, then conflict becomes threatening. If your value comes from giving your children everything you did not receive, you may struggle to notice when they need something different from what you needed. The central question is not simply, am I parenting differently? It is, who is this response protecting right now? Is it meeting your child's actual need? Or is it trying to repair something in your own history? That question is uncomfortable because the answer is rarely pure. You can be acting from love and fear at the same time. You can set a healthy boundary in one moment and react defensively in the next. You can interrupt one family pattern while unknowingly creating another. Real change is not perfection. It is the ability to notice what is happening before the past makes the decision for you. Sometimes that requires only a brief pause. Before solving the problem, ask whether your child needs rescue, guidance, or simply someone nearby. Before removing the frustration, notice what the frustration awakens in you. Before saying yes out of guilt, consider whether a calm no might actually provide safety. And before stepping in, allow your child a little more time with the problem, not as a test and not as abandonment, but as an opportunity to discover their own strength. Because many Generation X parents are not trying to erase everything they learned. They still value responsibility, creativity, resilience, and the ability to figure things out. They do not necessarily want to raise children who avoid difficulty. They want to raise children who can face difficulty without believing they must face it completely alone. That is the balance. Independence without abandonment, emotional support without control, firmness without humiliation, protection without fear becoming the architect of the child's life. So return to that closed bedroom door. You knock. You say you are available. Then you give your teenager space. You do not disappear, but you also do not force the door open. Maybe that is what creating a different family really looks like. Not giving your children a life without frustration, sadness, consequences, or uncertainty. But giving them something many parents once needed themselves. The freedom to develop their own strength while knowing that connection will still be there when they turn around. Breaking a generational pattern does not mean becoming the opposite of your parents. It means the past is no longer allowed to choose automatically. And perhaps the most powerful legacy is not raising children who never feel alone. It is raising children who know that needing someone does not make them weak. If you recognized your family or yourself in this, share your experience in the comments and subscribe for more explorations of the psychology hidden inside everyday behavior.